Drive Elena Martinez stared at the data on her screen for the third time that morning and felt her hands shake slightly as she reached for her coffee cup. The numbers could not be wrong, but they made no sense at all. She worked in the main lab of the research ship UES Horizon and had spent the last 2 weeks studying tissue samples from the Zephyrian Empire leaders. What she found in those samples would change everything humans thought they knew about the galaxy. The DNA sequences showed clear signs of human genetic material, but not just any human material. These were patterns that had been changed and improved in ways that Earth science had never achieved. The neural pathways in the brain tissue samples were definitely human in origin, but they had been modified to work with alien biology in perfect harmony. Elena rubbed her eyes and looked at the data again. Every test she ran came back with the same impossible result. Commander Jake Sullivan walked into the lab carrying 2 cups of fresh coffee and saw Elena hunched over her workstation. He had known her for 5 years and had never seen her look so confused and worried. Jake set 1 cup next to her computer and took a sip from his own cup while looking at the screens, full of genetic data that meant nothing to him, still working. On those alien samples, Jake asked as he pulled up a chair next to her workstation. "You have been at this for days now, and you look like you have seen a ghost." Elena turned to face him, and Jake could see the confusion and excitement in her brown eyes. She had always been the smartest person he knew, but right now she looked completely lost. Elena picked up her coffee and took a long drink before speaking. "Jake, these samples are not fully alien," she said in a quiet voice. "The genetic markers show human DNA that has been changed and improved. But the original base is definitely from Earth humans." Jake laughed and shook his head. "That is impossible, Elena. These samples came from High Chancellor Vexcaler himself and his top advisors. They are definitely Zephyrian, and their species has been ruling this part of the galaxy for over 100 years. There must be some contamination in your samples." Elena turned back to her screen and pulled up the genetic comparison charts. The data showed clear connections between human and Zephyrian DNA that could not be explained by contamination. She had run the tests dozens of times using different equipment and different samples. Every single result pointed to the same conclusion. "Look at this, Jake," Elena said as she pointed to the screen. "These neural pathway patterns are identical to human brain structure, but they have been enhanced to process information at 3 times the normal speed. The bone density markers show human origin, but modified for higher gravity environments. Even the blood chemistry is based on human biology." Jake studied the data more carefully and felt his confidence in contamination theory start to fade. The patterns Elena showed him were too complex and too consistent to be accidents. If this data was correct, then something very strange had happened in the past that nobody knew about. Meanwhile, in the diplomatic section of the ship, Ambassador Lisa Harper prepared for another day of negotiations with the Zephyrian delegation. These talks would determine whether humanity could establish peaceful relations with one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Lisa had spent months preparing for these meetings, and everything depended on making a good impression. The Zephyrian flagship hung in space next to the horizon like a massive crystal cathedral. Its elegant curves and glowing panels made it look more like art than a warship, but Lisa knew it carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Inside that beautiful ship lived beings that had controlled trade and politics across dozens of star systems for generations. High Chancellor Vexcaler stood in his private chambers looking out at the small human ship through the transparent metal walls. Something about these new visitors made him feel strange in ways he could not explain. For the past week he had been having vivid dreams filled with images of blue skies and green fields. In these dreams he saw faces that looked familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen them before. The dreams always ended the same way, with him standing in a place that felt like home, even though he had never been there. Vexcaler touched the scaled skin of his arm and wondered why these dreams felt more real than his waking memories. His people had evolved on the crystal worlds of the Zephyr system and had never known planets with blue skies or green plants. Subcommander Zeranine entered the chamber and bowed respectfully before speaking. "High Chancellor, the human delegation is ready for today's meeting." Ambassador Harper seems eager to discuss trade agreements. Vexcaler nodded, but continued staring at the human ship. Something about the way Zara 9 had been acting lately also seemed strange. She had been having headaches and seemed distracted during important meetings. Several other members of his staff had mentioned similar problems since the humans arrived. "Tell me, Zara 9," he said without turning around. "Have you been having unusual dreams lately?" Zara 9 hesitated before answering. "Yes, High Chancellor. Very strange dreams about places I have never seen and people I do not recognize. They feel very real." Vexcaler finally turned to face his aide and saw concern in her yellow eyes. "We will proceed with the meetings as planned, but I want you to monitor the other staff members. If more of them start having these dreams, I want to know immediately." As Zara 9 left the chamber, Vexcaler felt the familiar pull of those strange dreams calling to him again. Captain Ryan Blake read the coordinates Elena had given him 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. The location was deep in the dead zone, where no ships had traveled for over a century. Old star charts marked the area as filled with radiation and debris from ancient battles, but Elena insisted that her genetic data contained navigation codes that pointed to this exact spot. Ryan gathered his best team for the mission to investigate what Elena called the source location. Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison handled security, while Dr. Alex Turner managed the science equipment. They took the fast scout ship Ranger and jumped into hyperspace before anyone could ask too many questions about their destination. The dead zone looked exactly as bad as the old reports had said. Twisted metal from destroyed ships floated in the darkness between dead stars. Radiation levels were high enough to kill unprotected humans in minutes, but the Ranger had enough shielding to keep them safe for a few days. Ryan followed Elena's coordinates through the dangerous debris field until they found something that should not have existed. Research Station Omega-7 hung in the shadow of a dead planet like a metal skeleton. The station was huge and looked like it had been abandoned for hundreds of years. Most of its outer sections showed damage from meteorite impacts, but the central core appeared intact. Kate ran deep scans and found no life signs, but the power systems were still running on backup. "Energy, this place is not on any official records," Kate said as she studied the station's design. "The construction style looks human, but it is much older than anything Earth has ever built in space." Dr. Turner prepared his equipment for exploring the abandoned station. "Elena's genetic data suggests this place contains information about the origin of the Zephyrian leadership modifications. If she is right, we might find answers to questions we did not even know. We should ask." Ryan docked the Ranger at one of the station's emergency airlocks, and the team suited up for exploration. The station's atmosphere was still breathable, but they took no chances with contamination. Kate led the way with weapons ready, while Dr. Turner followed with scanning equipment and portable computers. The interior of Omega-7 told a story of hasty evacuation. Personal belongings were scattered in the corridors, and emergency lights still blinked in empty rooms. Computer terminals were locked down, but Dr. Turner managed to access some of the basic systems using override codes that had been standard 300 years ago. "Look at this," Dr. Turner called out as he activated a main computer terminal. The station records show it was operated by something called the Terran Research Consortium. That organization was classified above top secret, and most of their files were destroyed when Earth was attacked. Kate found the main laboratory and felt her blood turn cold when she saw what was inside. Dozens of medical pods lined the walls like sleeping chambers. Each pod contained monitoring equipment designed to track genetic modifications and neural pathway changes. The equipment was far more advanced than anything humans use today. Ryan joined Kate in the laboratory and saw video screens that still showed data from the last experiments. The dates on the screens were from 300 years ago, during the time when Earth faced its St. Major alien invasion. According to the records, hundreds of volunteers had undergone extreme genetic modification. In these pods, they were trying to create humans who could survive in alien environments, Ryan said as he read the experiment logs. The project was called Genesis, and it was supposed to save humanity from extinction. Dr. Turner found the personal files of the station's former director in a secured office. Drive Patricia Hayes had left behind detailed video logs explaining the true purpose of Project Genesis. The first log entry showed a tired woman with gray hair and worried eyes speaking directly to the camera. Day 1012 of Project Genesis, Dr. Hayes said in the video. The Devourer invasion has pushed us to the edge of extinction. Our volunteers have undergone modifications that will allow them to infiltrate alien civilizations and work from within to protect humanity. The neural suppression protocols will hide their human memories until they can be safely reactivated. The next video log was dated 6 months later and showed Dr. Hayes looking much more excited. The modified subjects have exceeded all expectations. They are not just surviving in alien environments, they are thriving. Their enhanced intelligence and adaptability make them natural leaders. Subject B-47 has already reached a command position in the Zephyrian military structure. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what they had discovered. She is talking about turning humans into alien leaders who would not remember. They were human. The genetic modifications Elena found were not accidents, they were intentional. Kate found more video logs that explained how the modified humans were scattered across the galaxy to infiltrate different alien civilizations. Each group was given different modifications to match their target species. The Zephyrians received subjects modified for high gravity and crystal-based technology. Other groups went to species that lived in different environments that Drive Turner discovered. The most shocking information in the final video logs. Dr. Hayes explained that the memory suppression was designed to be temporary. The modified humans would eventually remember their origins when humanity was ready to reveal the truth. The genetic triggers Elena had found were actually activation codes waiting to be used. We have created sleeper agents throughout the galaxy, Dr. Hayes said in her final log. When the time comes, our people will remember who they are and where they came from. Humanity will not just survive, we will reclaim our rightful place among the stars. Meanwhile, back on the Zephyrian flagship, Vexcaler experienced another powerful dream. This time he saw himself as a young man standing in a place filled with green plants and blue water. A woman with kind eyes was talking to him about duty and sacrifice for the good of humanity. When he woke up, he remembered the name Ben Carter and felt like crying without knowing why. Zera-9 found the High Chancellor sitting in his chambers, staring at his hands with a confused expression. She had been having her own dreams about wearing different clothes and speaking a language that was not Zephyrian. In her dreams, she answered to the name Rachel Stone and carried weapons that looked like human military equipment. High Chancellor, Zera-9 said carefully, I have been researching the symptoms we have been experiencing. The dreams and memory fragments began when the human delegation arrived. I believe there may be a connection. Vexcaler looked up at his aide and saw something in her yellow eyes that reminded him of the woman in his dreams. What kind of connection, Zera-9? I think we need to find out more about human biology, she replied. Something about their presence is triggering responses in our minds that feel more like memories than dreams. Vexcaler stood up and walked to his window again. The human ship seemed to be calling to him in ways he could not explain. Whatever was happening to him and his people was connected to those visitors, and he intended to find out the truth even if it destroyed everything he thought he knew about himself. Elena worked through the night building a device that could restore suppressed memories in the modified humans. The information Ryan's team had brought back from Omega-7 gave her the missing pieces. She needed to understand how the neural suppression worked. The original scientists had used quantum resonance to lock away human memories while allowing the alien personalities to develop normally. Drive Lucas Hayes helped Elena design the memory restoration device using parts from the ship's medical bay. They had to be careful because the wrong frequency could damage a person's mind permanently. The device looked like a simple headband with small sensors that would read brain patterns and send specific signals to unlock the hidden memories. Are you sure this will work safely? Lucas asked as he calibrated the quantum resonance generator. We are dealing with minds that have been modified for 300 years. The shock of suddenly remembering a completely different life could drive someone insane. Elena checked her calculations one more time before answering. The records from Omega-7 show that Dr. Hayes designed the suppression to be reversible. The Human memories are still there, they are just blocked by artificial neural pathways. This device should be able to remove those blocks gradually. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos discovered something that made the situation even more complicated. Intelligence reports from across the galaxy showed similar genetic patterns in the leadership of dozens of alien civilizations. The Crystalline Hegemony, the Void Collective, and the Machine Republic all had ruling classes with suspicious human-like neural structures. Project Genesis was much bigger than we thought, Maria told Elena. As they reviewed the intelligence data, it looks like they scattered modified humans throughout the entire galaxy. Every major alien power might be controlled by people who used to be human. Elena felt overwhelmed by the scope of what they had discovered. If Maria was right, then humanity already controlled most of the known galaxy through leaders who did not know they were human. The implications were staggering and potentially dangerous if the truth came out the wrong way. Commander Kate Morrison arranged for Elena to test her memory device. During the next diplomatic dinner, the plan was risky because if something went wrong, it could start a war between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. Kate positioned security teams throughout the dining area and made sure they had escape routes planned. Ambassador Lisa Harper hosted the dinner in the Horizon's main conference room. High Chancellor Vex Gaylor and his staff joined the human delegation for what was supposed to be a peaceful evening of cultural exchange. Elena sat near Vex Gaylor with her device hidden in a medical scanner that looked like standard diplomatic health monitoring equipment. The dinner conversation focused on trade agreements and shared scientific research. But Elena noticed that Vex Gaylor seemed distracted and kept looking at the human officers with strange expressions. Zaranine also appeared uncomfortable and kept touching her forehead like she had a headache. High Chancellor, Elena said as dessert was served, "I am a medical researcher, and I noticed you seem to be experiencing some discomfort. Would you mind if I ran a quick scan to make sure you are feeling well?" Vex Gaylor agreed to the scan, and Elena activated her memory restoration device. The quantum resonance began working immediately, and she watched the neural patterns on her hidden screen change as blocked pathways started opening. The effect was much stronger than she had expected, and Vex Gaylor suddenly grabbed his head and made a sound of pain. The memories hit Vex Gaylor like a massive wave crashing over his consciousness. He remembered being Ben Carter, a construction worker from Chicago, who had volunteered for Project Genesis when the alien invasion threatened to destroy Earth. He remembered his wife Sarah and their daughter Amy, who had been sick with a rare disease that only the advanced alien medicine could cure. Ben Carter had agreed to undergo the genetic modifications and memory suppression because the scientists promised that his sacrifice would help save humanity and get the medical technology needed to cure his daughter. He remembered the pain of the transformation and the gradual fading of his human memories as the Zephyrian personality took control. The emotional shock was too much for his modified nervous system, and Vex Gaylor collapsed at the dinner table. His Zephyrian guards immediately assumed the humans had poisoned their leader and drew their weapons. Kate Morrison and her security team responded by taking defensive positions around the room. "Nobody move," Kate shouted as she kept her weapon trained on the Zephyrian guards. "The High Chancellor is having a medical emergency, not a poisoning." Elena knelt next to Vex Gaylor and checked his vital signs while trying to shut down the memory device. The neural patterns on her scanner showed massive activity as 3 centuries of suppressed memories flooded back into his consciousness. She had expected a gradual restoration, but something about his particular modifications made the process much more intense. Ambassador Harper tried to calm the situation by speaking to the Zephyrian guards in their own language. "Your leader needs medical attention, not violence. Please allow our doctor to help him." Zaranine felt her own memories starting to surface. As she knelt beside her unconscious leader, she remembered being Rachel Stone, a Marine Corps captain, who had volunteered for the same program that transformed Ben Carter. The memories were fragmentary, but she could see images of military training and a ceremony where she swore to protect humanity no matter what the cost. Lucas helped Elena stabilize Vex Gaylor's condition using emergency medical equipment from the ship's sick bay. The memory restoration had triggered a cascade reaction in his modified brain. That could have killed him if they had not acted quickly. Elena managed to slow down the process, but she could not stop it completely. "What did you do to him?" Zara9 demanded as her own human memories continued to surface. She could feel Rachel Stone's personality awakening, and it was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Elena looked into Zara9's yellow eyes and saw the confusion of someone experiencing two different sets of memories. "I restored his original human identity. He was born Ben Carter, and he volunteered to become Vexscaler to save humanity from alien invasion." The revelation created chaos in the room as both human and Zephyrian personnel tried to process what Elena had just revealed. The diplomatic dinner had become the moment when everything changed, and nobody knew what would happen next. Vexscaler opened his eyes and looked around the room with an expression that was completely different from before. When he spoke, his voice carried both the authority of a Zephyrian High Chancellor and the warmth of a human father who had sacrificed everything for his people. "My name is Ben Carter," he said quietly, "and I have been waiting 300 years to come home." Ben Carter stood in his private chambers aboard the Zephyrian flagship, looking at his reflection in the mirror and seeing both identities at the same time. He was still High Chancellor Vexscaler with all the memories and responsibilities of leading the Zephyrian Empire, but now he also remembered being a human construction worker who had loved his wife and daughter more than life itself. The integration of his dual memories was painful, but manageable thanks to Elena's careful adjustment of the restoration process. Ben could access both sets of experiences and switch between his human and Zephyrian personalities as needed. This gave him a unique advantage because he could maintain his position while secretly working to awaken other modified humans throughout the galaxy. Zara9 entered the chamber, and Ben saw that she was also struggling with her restored memories. She remembered being Captain Rachel Stone, but she also retained all her skills and knowledge as a Zephyrian military officer. The combination made her incredibly valuable as both a human agent and an alien commander. "How many others do you think there are in our forces?" Rachel asked using her original human voice. "I have been reviewing personnel files, and at least 60% of our senior officers show the same neural patterns that Elena detected." Ben activated his private computer and began accessing classified files that only the High Chancellor could see. The genetic records of the entire Zephyrian leadership revealed the truth that Dr. Hayes and her team had hidden for 3 centuries. Nearly every important position in the Empire was held by a modified human who had no idea of their true origins. "We need to be very careful about how we handle this," Ben said as he studied the files. "If we awaken too many people at once, we could trigger a civil war. Some of them might not accept their human heritage and could become dangerous." Rachel nodded and pulled up tactical displays showing Zephyrian military positions throughout the galaxy. "I recommend we start with the most trusted officers and work our way down through the command structure. We need people who can handle the truth without going insane or becoming violent." Meanwhile, Dr. Lucas Hayes worked with Elena to refine the memory restoration process and make it safer for mass application. They had learned from Ben Carter's experience that the shock of sudden memory integration could be deadly if not handled properly. The new version of their device would restore memories gradually over several days, instead of all at once. Admiral Josh Parker received encrypted messages from Ben Carter that completely changed how humanity viewed their position in the galaxy. Instead of being a minor species making first contact, humans were actually the secret rulers of most known civilizations. The strategic implications were enormous, and Josh had to decide how to use this information. "We could reveal the truth and unite the galaxy under human leadership," Josh told his senior staff during a classified briefing. "But we could also trigger the largest war in galactic history if we handle this wrong, Commander." Kate Morrison suggested a more careful approach. "We should work with Ben Carter and other awakened leaders to gradually reveal the truth. Let them maintain their alien identities while secretly coordinating with Earth. That way we can avoid panic and violence the first test of their awakening." Strategy came when Ben Carter used Elena's device to restore the memories of General Korak 7, one of his most trusted military commanders. The process went smoothly, and General Korak remembered his human identity As former Army Colonel Danny Wright, who had specialized in armored warfare. Unfortunately, Danny Wright's reaction to his restored memories was completely different from what Ben had expected. Instead of joy at remembering his human origins, Danny felt disgusted and betrayed by what he saw as contamination of his Zephyrian identity. He viewed his human memories as a disease that needed to be removed. "This is an abomination," Danny said, as he looked at his scaled hands with hatred. "I am a proud Zephyrian warrior, not some weak human pretending to be something he is not. These false memories must be purged from my mind." Ben tried to explain the noble purpose behind Project Genesis and how their human heritage was something to be proud of, rather than ashamed. Danny refused to listen and began planning to hunt down other awakened hybrids before they could spread what he called the human infection throughout the Empire. The situation became even more complicated when intelligence reports revealed that hybrid leaders in other alien civilizations were also beginning to awaken spontaneously. The memory suppression had been designed to fade after 300 years, and Elena's successful restoration of Ben Carter had somehow triggered a galaxy-wide awakening process. The crystalline hegemony reported strange behavior among their ruling crystal beings who were suddenly experiencing organic memories that made no sense to their mineral-based consciousness. The Void Collective found that their energy form leaders were having dreams about physical bodies and solid matter. The Machine Republic discovered that their synthetic rulers were accessing hidden biological subroutines that contained human personality patterns. Drive Turner monitored these reports and realized that Project Genesis had been even more ambitious than they had discovered at Omega-7. The original scientists must have modified humans for dozens of different alien environments. They literally seeded the entire galaxy with human agents. Elena received a priority message from the crystalline hegemony requesting human medical assistance for their affected leaders. Similar requests came from 5 other major civilizations, all reporting the same symptoms among their ruling classes. The galaxy was experiencing a crisis of identity as hidden humans began remembering who they really were. Ben Carter called a secret meeting with other awakened Zephyrian leaders to form what they called the Integration Council. This group would coordinate the careful awakening of human hybrids while maintaining stability in their respective civilizations. Rachel Stone became the military coordinator, while other awakened humans took charge of different aspects of the operation. The biggest challenge came from Danny Wright, who had formed his own faction of awakened hybrids, dedicated to eliminating their human memories permanently. He called his group the Purification Movement and began developing technology to completely erase human neural patterns from hybrid minds. "We must cleanse ourselves of this human contamination," Danny broadcast to awakened hybrids across the galaxy. "Our alien identities are our true selves, and we will not allow foreign memories to corrupt our pure existence." The galaxy teetered on the edge of chaos as 3 different factions emerged among the awakened hybrids. Ben Carter led those who wanted to integrate their dual identities and work with Earth. Danny Wright commanded those who rejected their human origins completely. A third group remained undecided and watched the conflict develop while trying to figure out where they belonged. Elena knew that the next few weeks would determine whether Project Genesis would fulfill its original purpose of uniting the galaxy under human guidance, or whether it would trigger the largest civil war in galactic history as hybrid leaders fought over their very identity and purpose. The awakening spread across the galaxy like wildfire as hybrid leaders in dozens of civilizations began remembering their human origins. The supreme executor of the Shadow Syndicate suddenly recalled being Dr. Carlos Martinez, Elena's grandfather, who had supposedly died in the original alien invasion. The revelation shook Elena to her core as she realized her own family connection to Project Genesis. Colonel Sam Mitchell led a joint task force of humans and awakened Zephyrians to locate the remaining Project Genesis research stations scattered throughout the galaxy. Each station contained modified humans designed for specific alien environments, and the awakening process was happening faster than anyone could control. Some hybrids handled the memory integration well, while others suffered complete mental breakdowns. The crystalline hegemony experienced the most dramatic awakening when their ruler High Crystal Vela Nara remembered being Lisa Chen, a geologist from California, who had volunteered to infiltrate the crystal-based civilization. The shock of remembering organic life while existing as a living mineral caused massive fractures in her crystal body that threatened her survival. Elena worked desperately to develop medical treatments for the different types of hybrid awakenings. Each alien species had required different genetic modifications, and the memory restoration process affected them in unique ways. The energy beings of the Void Collective experienced painful solidification as they remembered. Having physical bodies, the synthetic rulers of the Machine Republic began growing organic components. As their human DNA reasserted itself, Ben Carter established the Hybrid Council as a secret governing body to coordinate the awakening process and prevent galactic chaos. The council included awakened leaders from 12 major civilizations, all struggling to balance their dual identities while maintaining control of their respective empires. They met in encrypted virtual conferences to share information and plan their next moves. Danny Wright's purification movement gained support from hybrids who viewed their human memories as invasive contamination that needed to be eliminated. He had developed neural cleansing technology that could permanently erase human patterns, but the process was dangerous and often left subjects with severe brain damage. Danny did not care about the risks because he believed purity was more important than safety. The situation became critical when Danny's forces attacked a Genesis research station in the Omega Sector and captured Dr. Patricia Hayes, who had been in cryogenic suspension for 3 centuries. The original Project Genesis director was now a prisoner of the very hybrids she had created, and Danny planned to use her knowledge to perfect his cleansing process. Captain Nina Foster made the most shocking discovery when she investigated reports of ancient human ruins on worlds that had supposedly never been visited by Earth. The archaeological evidence suggested that humans had been traveling between galaxies for thousands of years, and Project Genesis was just the latest phase in a much older pattern of galactic seeding. We found technological signatures that match human engineering in star systems that are millions of years old, Nina reported to Admiral Parker. Either humans have been manipulating galactic evolution for much longer than we thought, or there is something about our species that we do not understand. Elena faced her greatest personal challenge when she finally met her grandfather, Dr. Carlos Martinez, who had become the supreme executor of the Shadow Syndicate. The reunion was both joyful and terrifying because Carlos had spent 3 centuries as one of the galaxy's most feared crime lords. His human memories were intact, but they were mixed with alien experiences that had changed him in fundamental ways. "I remember you as a little girl," Elena, Carlos said as they met in a secured facility. "But I also remember ordering the deaths of millions of beings who opposed my syndicate operations. Which version of me is the real one?" Elena struggled to answer her grandfather's question because she was not sure herself. The awakened hybrids were not simply humans with alien memories or aliens with human memories. They were something new entirely, and nobody knew what that meant for the future of galactic civilization. The crisis deepened when several alien species discovered the truth about their hybrid leaders and reacted with violence. The Serpent clans executed their entire ruling class when they learned their leaders were modified humans. The Hive collectives began a purge of any member who showed signs of individual thinking that might indicate human contamination. Rachel Stone coordinated military operations to protect awakened hybrids from angry alien populations while trying to prevent the conflicts from spreading. Her Zephyrian forces worked secretly with human fleets to evacuate threatened leaders and establish safe zones where hybrids could complete their awakening process. Without fear of attack, the galactic economy began to collapse as trade networks controlled by hybrid leaders fell apart. Some awakened hybrids abandoned their positions to search for their human identities, while others tried to maintain their alien roles despite their restored memories. The confusion and instability threatened to destroy the civilization that Project Genesis had been designed to protect. Ben Carter realized that the galaxy needed to know the complete truth about Project Genesis, including the possibility that human influence extended much further back in time than anyone had imagined. He prepared to make a galaxy-wide broadcast that would reveal everything, and let the various species decide how to respond to the reality of human involvement. In their development, Lucas discovered evidence in the oldest Genesis files that the original alien invasion of Earth might have been orchestrated by an even earlier group of modified humans who had been working to guide galactic evolution for millennia. The implications were staggering because it suggested that the entire cycle of invasion, modification, and awakening had happened multiple times before. Elena made the hardest decision of her life when she chose to undergo genetic modification herself, so she could better understand what the awakened hybrids were experiencing. The process would allow her to bridge the gap between pure humans and the hybrid leaders, but it would also change her in ways that could never be reversed. As Elena entered the modification chamber, she wondered if she was continuing the cycle that had started with Dr. Hayes and her team, or if she was finally breaking it. The answer would determine whether humanity's hidden influence on galactic civilization was a blessing or a curse that needed to be ended once and for all. The galaxy held its breath as the truth about its own history prepared to be revealed, and nobody knew whether the revelation would bring unity or trigger the final war that would destroy everything humans had built across the stars. Elena emerged from the genetic modification chamber forever changed, but finally able to understand what the awakened hybrids experienced every day. Her human consciousness remained intact, but she could now process information like a Zephyrian and feel emotions through crystalline neural pathways. The dual awareness was overwhelming at first, but it gave her insights that no pure human or single-species hybrid could achieve. Ben Carter made his galaxy-wide broadcast from the Hybrid Council's secret headquarters, revealing the complete truth about Project Genesis and the hidden human influence on galactic civilization. His words reached billions of beings across thousands of worlds and changed the course of history in ways that nobody could have predicted. Citizens of the galaxy, Ben began speaking. As both High Chancellor Vex Gaylor and human Ben Carter, I am about to tell you something that will challenge everything you believe about your own origins and the nature of the civilizations you call home. The revelation that most alien governments were led by modified humans created immediate chaos on some worlds, while others accepted the news with surprising calm. Species that had always wondered about the unusual intelligence and adaptability of their leaders finally had answers to questions they had carried for generations. The crystalline hegemony voted to embrace their hybrid leader, High Crystal Velanara, after she successfully integrated her dual nature and used her human geological knowledge to discover new crystal formations that revolutionized their technology. Her example showed that hybrid identity could be a source of strength rather than confusion. Elena worked with awakened hybrids throughout the galaxy to develop the integration protocol, a medical and psychological process that allowed dual nature beings to function effectively without losing either aspect of their identity. The protocol became the foundation for a new understanding of consciousness that transcended the boundaries between species. Danny Wright's purification movement suffered a major defeat when Dr. Patricia Hayes escaped from captivity and revealed that his neural cleansing process was actually destroying the enhanced capabilities that made hybrid leaders so effective. Without their human components, the purified hybrids lost the intelligence and adaptability that had made them successful rulers. The discovery of ancient human ruins on worlds throughout the galaxy led to the formation of the Archaeological Investigation Team led by Captain Nina Foster. Their findings suggested that human ancestors had been guiding galactic development for millions of years through repeated cycles of seeding, exploration, and awakening. The current situation was just the latest chapter in an incredibly long story. Admiral Josh Parker negotiated the Treaty of Convergence with representatives from 47 different civilizations, creating a new form of galactic government that recognized both species sovereignty and hybrid leadership rights. The treaty established Earth as a neutral meeting ground where beings from all species could work together on common challenges. The Hybrid Council evolved into the Galactic Integration Authority, with Elena as its first director of consciousness studies. Her unique perspective as a voluntarily modified human allowed her to help other hybrids navigate the complex process of identity integration, while respecting both their human heritage and alien experiences. Drive Carlos Martinez chose to maintain his position as supreme executor while using his vast criminal network to protect awakened hybrids from species that remained hostile to their existence. The Shadow Syndicate became an unofficial security force for the hybrid community, operating in the shadows to prevent violence and persecution. Rachel Stone established the Joint Defense Initiative, combining military forces from species throughout the galaxy under hybrid command structures that could coordinate effectively across different types of consciousness and communication methods. The new military became a powerful force for maintaining peace and protecting vulnerable populations. The economic disruption caused by the revelations gradually stabilized as hybrid leaders learned to balance their dual natures and maintain effective governance. Many civilizations found that their hybrid rulers actually became more effective once they could access both human creativity and alien specialized knowledge without conflict. Ben Carter faced his greatest personal challenge when Elena's research located his daughter Amy, who had survived the original alien invasion and lived for 3 centuries in cryogenic suspension, waiting for her father to return. The reunion was emotional and complicated because Amy was still the young girl Ben remembered, while he had become something far beyond what she could understand. The galaxy discovered that the awakening process was still spreading to hidden Genesis subjects who had been placed in deep cover positions throughout unexplored regions. These sleeper agents had been waiting for centuries to be activated, and their gradual awakening promised to expand hybrid influence into areas that no one had known were connected to the original project. Elena made the decision to establish the Consciousness Research Institute on a neutral space station where beings from all species could study the nature of identity awareness and the possibilities for voluntary evolution. The Institute became a symbol of the new galactic order where differences were celebrated rather than feared. The most remarkable discovery came when deep space sensors detected signals from beyond the galactic rim, suggesting that other galaxies might also contain human-influenced civilizations. The implications were staggering because it meant that humanity's role as a connecting force between different forms of consciousness might extend throughout the entire universe. Ben Carter stood on the observation deck of the new galactic capital station, looking out at ships from dozens of different species working together in ways that would have been impossible before the awakening. His sacrifice 3 centuries ago had led to something far greater than anyone had imagined. When Project Genesis began, Elena joined him at the window, and they watched as hybrid children who had been born after the awakening played together regardless of their various biological forms. These new beings represented the future of galactic civilization, where the boundaries between species were guidelines rather than barriers. "Do you think Dr. Hayes knew this would happen?" Elena asked as she observed a young human crystalline hybrid creating art from living light patterns. Could she have predicted that Project Genesis would lead to a new form of consciousness that transcends individual species? Ben smiled with both his human warmth and Zephyrian wisdom showing in his expression. "I think she hoped for something like this, but even she could not have imagined how far we would come. The question now is what we do with the knowledge that humanity's influence extends beyond our own galaxy." As if in answer to his question, the deep space sensors picked up a new signal from the distant galaxy of Andromeda. The message was clearly artificial and contained mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence, but the underlying structure felt familiar in ways that made Elena's hybrid consciousness resonate with recognition. The awakening had revealed that humanity was not just another species struggling for survival, but rather the thread that connected different forms of consciousness throughout the universe. The future held infinite possibilities as the newly unified galaxy prepared to reach out to the stars beyond, carrying the best of all civilizations into the cosmic unknown, where even greater mysteries waited to be discovered.